Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Quick little walk around the yard this morning. Had a holiday weekend to get ready for today at work. Because of the holiday, a lot of podcasts weren't uploaded, so they weren't able for me to listen to. So I got a recommendation from my buddy. I believe his name is Chris Van Vliet. Put up an interview with Jesse Ventura in the last week, and my buddy Ravi, I saw him Battery 777, had texted it to me, basically saying that it was a really good interview. I didn't have anything to listen to today, basically, so I checked it out. The one thing that I took from the interview more than anything else is that when Jesse Ventura said that he is not in the WWE Hall of Fame, I honestly was shocked. Jesse Ventura, one of the greatest announcers. I'm not going to lie to you and act like I know about his wrestling career. What I do know about it is that he was a really big star wrestling before he became an announcer when he retired in 1984. I'm just really surprised. He sort of, said that there is somebody in politics that is already in the WWE Hall of Fame, and he has turned it down. I believe he has said he's turned it down 3 times because of the fact he doesn't see eye to eye with that person. He did name it, but fuck it. He's talking about Donald Trump. I think he takes it personally that they asked Donald Trump to go in before they put him in. Jesse Ventura, let me think. Okay. The Hall of Fame was created, it was first around in like 1993, 1994, around when they were doing the Hall of Fame around the King of the Ring. But I mean, it really picked up steam. Like WrestleMania 20 is kind of when they put it back in action. That WrestleMania 20 class was so big with so many names in there. I'm really surprised that Jesse didn't go in that year. Jesse is somebody that has been on the ins and he's been on the outs, and I'm sure we'll get into it in this video. But Ventura came back when he was doing press for his television show that revolved around like mysteries or conspiracy theories. It was something like that. He came back and he did announcing for the main event and helped Sheamus become the number 1 contender to go up against Cena. I believe it was at TLC when Sheamus shocked the world and he won the championship so quick into his career. It was Jesse that set up the match. It was Jesse calling the match, and it was Jesse that got in the ring and congratulated him on the win there. That was probably around 2009 is when I would guess that would be, because Sheamus had already been champion when he took on Triple H at WrestleMania 26. WrestleMania 26 is the class, honestly, that I think the WWE just thought the Ultimate Warrior, if we ask him to go into the Hall of Fame, there's no doubt he's going to do it, and he would be like the main event guest for the Hall of Fame. Instead, it ended up being the $1 Million Man. That class, it's a good class. It's just not a great class. And when you look at classes of the WWE Hall of Fame, it's honestly, it's one of the weakest ones. Bob Uecker went in. Off the top of my head, honestly, that's kind of all I really remember about that year. I haven't watched WrestleMania 26. This like Hall of Fame ceremony in a while. They bring him out on the stage at WrestleMania. But why didn't they ask Jesse to go into the Hall of Fame that year? I mean, Donald Trump went into the Hall of Fame WrestleMania 29. That was when it was in New York. Trish Stratus, Booker T, Bruno Sammartino. Was Bob Backlund in that one as well, or am I just crazy? But it was like a big New York class, I guess you can say. And I think that was one of the reasons why Trump went in. Trump, he did a lot for wrestling, whether if you stand with him or you just hate him these days. He, brought the big money to WWF at the time for WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5, when he was the biggest star in TV around The Apprentice. He did the WrestleMania 22, when the two bald billionaires in there, who was going to shave their head, with Umaga and Bobby Lashley with Stone Cold Steve Austin. That was a big deal, and they sold a lot of tickets in Detroit, but they also sold a lot of pay-per-views because of the fact that Trump was there. You got to tip your hat and say that honestly was one of the things. And Vince and Trump being on the Today Show the next morning right after WrestleMania, I don't think they would have been able to do that, even with their NBC ties at the time, if Trump wouldn't have been there. But Jesse was an announcer when I got into wrestling. I know that he was at WrestleMania 2. I think that is the time he was talking about on the podcast, which is a little bit wishy-washy to me. I'm not saying that he's a liar or he's mixing up stories. Maybe he's just making stories. But I didn't really understand the fact that, when they called for him to do The Predator, he was trying to call Vince and say that he was going to make the movie. Vince wouldn't take his call, so he basically just, told him that he quit and he was going to go make the movie. He ends up doing, Saturday Night's Main Event as well as WrestleMania before the movie gets shot. So, did Vince already bring him back? Or, what the hell's going on? But Vince and Jesse are two guys that have had a real weird relationship. I take it that, Jesse likes saying that he, doesn't stand side by side with Vince McMahon. I think at this point, I don't think he's running for office or doing anything like that, but if he wants to help somebody out in politics, I don't think it's very good if he's out there doing interviews and there's clips of him saying that him and Vince are buddies. But I think Jesse was one of the first guys in wrestling that knew how to get what he wanted out of Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon was always somebody that kind of pushed people around, paid him what he wanted to pay him instead of what the guys wanted to get paid or what they thought they should have got paid. Jesse Ventura was one of the first guys that got their contract done with an agent, Barry Bloom. They had sort of got hooked up before, but they really got involved when Jesse was doing things in movies. Jesse tried to get the wrestlers to unionize around WrestleMania 2. They had already done the press saying that WrestleMania 2 was going to be a thing. He gathered everybody up in the locker room with nobody from the office around, said, if we're going to do it, this is the time that we're going to do it. If we say that we want to unionize, it is the law that they have to bring in union people to negotiate us out of the deal. He found out when he started to do movies that that he should be getting paid on the back end for things that that he would take Vince to court with over the home video releases and things like that, where he wanted to get a piece of the pie, not only of things when they came out, but that when Vince was still making money on them in the foreseeable future. It's something that they don't really talk about anymore, but there used to be big pay-per-view bonuses for guys that made them into pay-per-views as well as just were featured on pay-per-views, and those just became non-existent after the WWE Network, and now we're on the Peacock deal. Wrestlers just sort of shut their mouth. I think if Jesse was somebody that was in the locker room at that time, I think he definitely would have said something. He would have made a big deal about it, and he was somebody that normally got his way. And, maybe the wrestlers never would have lost those pay-per-view bonuses. I'm not on the inside. I've never got a check from WWE other than my dividend check with my WWE stock that I guess we're not going to be getting anymore now that they've been acquired by TKO. I don't think they do the quarterly checks. I was really counting on those 36 cents checks that ended up becoming 18-cent checks for my dividend. But I don't know. I mean, Jesse Ventura was one hell of a guy. I knew him more of an announcer more than anything else. People know him from Predator, I Ain't Got Time to Bleed. I remember him a lot from Major League 2, where he and Willie Mays Hayes made a video in the off season that the guys watched. To sort of set the story that the guys were doing other things other than baseball, and that's the reason why the team wasn't as good as they were in the first movie, because they all had outside distractions from becoming stars in the first one, and I can't remember what his was, but it was a playoff of a real life TV show that Jesse Ventura and Roddy Piper tried to make together, where they were joining the police force. I can't remember, it was like buddies or partners, something like that. They were just basically going through the police force, trying to get on the squad, and I don't think the show ended up getting picked up. But the trailer and the pilot is out there for you to check out. But really good interview with Jesse. Really good guy. Really knew how to fight Vince, and I think he's got a good story. I mean, if Donald Trump is in the WWE Hall of Fame, why is Jesse Ventura not in the WWE Hall of Fame? It's not even like a real thing. It's just an acknowledgement. And when WWE was in Minnesota a few months ago, Jesse was there. Him and Triple H, they did the backstage segment with them shaking hands. He waved at the crowd. He's said things that the Legends contract is basically in the works. If it already isn't done, it's just waiting for signatures on there. I don't know anybody really waiting for Jesse Ventura action figures. I know that they really could make some good ones because he always had really good outfits. It's really boring, but one of my favorite ones is I think it's Rumble 89 or Rumble 90, when they're in Orlando and he's just wearing the Mickey Mouse old school sweatshirt, and I think he's even wearing the Mickey Mouse ears. The fact that they're in Disney World down there basically doing the show. But, he always had, he looked like $1 million, sitting next to Elvira at WrestleMania 2. But I always thought they was screwed up that Vince kind of lost the lawsuit about if they put Jesse on any DVDs, they had to pay him royalties. You go back, you pop in the Ultimate Warrior DVD, the first one, the one that nobody really talks about it anymore, the one where they kind of bury him, when they're putting the best warrior matches, the biggest warrior matches, however you see it, go to WrestleMania 6, and Jesse Ventura is cut out of commentary. It takes away from the match a ton. It's just Gorilla Monsoon playing off himself. Yeah, he's talking, all the Jesse lines are just cut out, like he's just not there. So Jesse's just talking to some non-existent person. Plus, you go back, you watch that match like on the network now. You pop in any other DVD. Jesse Ventura, who always played the heel as an announcer, he plays it really good. He puts over Hogan. He puts over Warrior. When both guys are trying to pull out all the stops, and I guess you can say doing heel-like tactics, almost cheating, I guess you can say, when it comes to the rule book, Jesse calls them out on it. And there weren't any other announcers in my day like that. I know that, once Jesse left, I guess he quit because they were going to make a Sega Genesis Jesse Ventura wrestling game. And Vince said, that's not a WWF game. You can't do it. And it wasn't like Jesse had announcing on the NES WrestleMania game at the time. So it wasn't like Jesse was getting any royalties off of that video game. Because, all it really came down to was like Hogan Macho Man, Honky Tonk Man, DiBiase, Andre the Giant, Bam Bam Bigelow. I really think that was everybody. Those are the only guys that made any money off of that game. There was no Jesse Ventura secret character or anything like that. So, Sega said, "Hey, we're gonna make this game." Vince said, "No, you're not." Jesse quit, and Jesse would end up going to WCW. I'll never forget one Saturday or Sunday morning. It was a weekend, early morning, and I was flipping around, and I found Jesse Ventura commentating RC car racing on like TNT, TBS, some sort of like far out there cable network that I wasn't watching at the time, and just being amazed. Like, it was like kind of like the first time I ever noticed, like, oh, this guy kind of like fell off. WCW, he was there. When he came in, I think he was really the Jesse that you remember from the Saturday Night's Main Event. When he's doing like the pay-per-views and you can go back and you can watch those, he feels like Jesse Ventura. But you kind of get into the later days, he's really phoning it in a lot like Bobby the Brain Heenan was in like 2000 WCW, where he's just there. He's only there to get the check. He's, sometime after the NWO, Heenan just lost it. Whether if they've talked about him drinking on the job and things like that. I'm not, I'm talking about that separate than we're talking about Ventura. I don't think Ventura was doing that. I've never heard any rumors about anything like that. But we'll just get back to Jesse. So we'll get off of that. But he just lost it. And, of course, he would go into, politics, where he would, be the mayor of a town that ended up turning him being the governor of the state of Minnesota, where people were really shocked. I didn't live in Minnesota at the time. I was living in Georgia the day that he was elected. But the news in Georgia about a wrestler winning an election was a lot like it was when I was living in California in 2001. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected. I really honestly felt like everybody woke up the next morning and was like, "You voted for Arnold?" I didn't know everybody was voting for Arnold. I voted for Arnold because I thought it was a funny thing that Arnold Schwarzenegger was on the ballot. But, that's just the way it was. It wasn't like at 20 years old, I'm thinking the way the world works the way I do now at... We'll just say I'm 40. I don't know how old I am. I'm 42, 43 or something like that. But, where were we? Jesse Ventura wins the mayor. After that, he comes back, SummerSlam 99. He does the main event, much like he did the tag team main event of SummerSlam 88. Is when he's the tag team ref. I don't even think he does announcing on that show. Hey guys. But not so. That's about it. Jesse Ventura, Hall of Fame this year. Mark it down.